Hello everyone, my name is Catherine Trad and I'm sitting here today with Dr. Joseph Jemsek in his very own Jemsek specialty clinic in Washington, D.C. Today we'll be discussing a little bit about Dr. Jemsek's career and his exciting new research in honor of the annual International Conference of the Academy of Nutritional Medicine. So Dr. Jemsek, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Thank you, Catherine. I have been practicing medicine for over 30 years. I estimated the other day, it was kind of scary to think about it, but I've probably seen 100,000 patients. Not the same patients.
Wow.
I mean, not all different patients, but that many visits. Started my career in Charlotte after doing a fellowship in infectious diseases in Houston, Texas. Was very interested in HIV before we knew what it was called. In '81, I diagnosed the first case in North Carolina. Became the first hospital epidemiologist at Charlotte Memorial, was called then. And for the next many years, did HIV. I did HIV for about 23 years and saw it go from a deadly disease to one that's manageable. And along the way, I was introduced quite by accident to this thing called Lyme disease. I'd set up an AIDS clinic north of Charlotte. The big clinic imploded, so we all scattered. And I assumed that I was going to spend the rest of my career doing HIV. And that didn't quite happen. Lyme disease found me. It was a turn of events, and I gradually became more intrigued by it, and before you know it, within a few years I was doing just as much Lyme borreliosis as I was HIV.
So over the years, you transitioned completely to Lyme, and you founded your clinic here in Washington, D.C., called the Jemsek Specialty Clinic, which is dedicated solely to the treatment of Lyme disease, specifically treatment-resistant Lyme disease. Can you tell us a little bit about this clinic and your Jemsek protocol, which you've also created and established?
So, first of all, the Jemsek protocol is predicated on a number of plausible hypotheses that have been tested over time, and the feedback that we get from our patients and the learning curve that we establish by following our patients very carefully. So there's no substitute for being very fastidious and careful about your interviews and your exams, because that's where you learn. It's been said by some of the IDSA that there are no findings in these people. Well, that's because they don't touch them, and you can't very well establish findings when you're not touching the patient.
Right.
And they know that's true. But it's a fascinating disease. It's as complex, if not more so, than HIV/AIDS, and it's prompted me to learn, and the people I work with to learn, many different disciplines, and to be competent in many different disciplines. Just to name two or three: sleep, pain, absorption, digestion, endocrine, neurology. So it's been a fascinating learning curve. And along the way, with my background in infectious diseases and having come through the HIV annals and learned about combinations and so forth and so on, I looked at the organisms, the target organisms, made some assumptions, and tailored my therapy based on those assumptions. We have probably seen well over 13,000 patients with what I call Lyme borreliosis complex. We're seeing as many as 600 visits a month. We're seeing an average of 40 to 50 new patients a month. And there is no shortage. There's no shortage of patients.
Yeah. So you mentioned nutrition and digestion. Could you tell us a little bit about the lifestyle changes you prescribe to your patients, specifically with regard to nutrition, when, with treated patients or patients that are undergoing the Jemsek protocol?
Well, I like acronyms, and as people probably know about me, I like to highlight things that I really can. But it all starts with, I think there are three big brackets at the top. I think there's environment, which who knows what that means and does to a person. I think you have lifestyle issues, and then you have genetics.
Right.
And I think as a corollary to that, you need to be infected with a number of pathogens, including the spirochete by the way, I think we all carry the spider key. Once it's in, it's in. That's why I think it's folly to even think about a vaccine.
Right.
Unless somehow you're thinking about a treatment vaccine, which I don't think they are. But in terms of the way it affects our patients, it does such damage neurologically and from a neuropsych point of view, systemically, constitutionally, absolutely pulls the plug on the energy. The ATP can't generate ATP. The mitochondria are shut down because the electronic gap is not able to charge up the electron transport system. People are fatigued. Now, they can also have numerous other reasons for energy loss, whether it be a hormonal thing or a digestive thing or nutritional thing. Very simply, once we stabilize essential life forms, and I have an acronym called POEMS, which is pain, other, which generally means support, could be comorbidities, endocrine, especially the adrenal axis, mood, and sleep. Those things have to be relatively stable. They don't have to be perfect, but they have to be stable enough so that we can go on with therapy, because therapy, as you know, is associated with some turbulence. And our patients need to be in a bandwidth where they can handle that turbulence. So we have our own check boxes. We won't treat people that, for example, have no support or who are off the reservation, psychiatrically. We can't. We don't want to fail, and we don't want to fail our patients. To detox, very simply, it's what you put in, and we know about gluten, right?
Yeah.
And gluten being a very provocative antigen and a leaky gut. Other food groups can play a role, casein and milk products and soy and so forth, oxalates perhaps. And then we know since our endogenous antioxidants, which is primarily glutathione, are saturated and neutralized, we need to take a couple of antioxidants. And the ones I prefer are neuroprotective. So they actually bind some of the waste products in the brain. And then third is to sweat. And because our people are going to sweat nitrites and ammonia and not sure what else.
Right.
So we try to keep things in balance as much as we can. These are guidelines we teach our patients. Many have already adapted.
Yeah.
Culture's already adapted. Look at all the gluten-free aisles everywhere.
Yeah.
Look at all the ads for bedding and pillows. And how important sleep is. Exercise. Infomercials on one antioxidant or another just goes on and on and on.
Yeah.
So I truly think, big picture, that this disease syndrome overlaps with many other diseases of unknown etiology. So any kind of neurodegenerative disorder potentially could be linked to this, because we don't know the etiology.
Yeah.
Any rheumatologic disease, same thing. Dermatologic diseases, GI diseases. And a study I'd love to do is to say, okay, let's take 250 patients, how many have either colitis or Crohn's, how many have had miscarriages, how many have pituitary adenomas, how many have Hashimoto's, and so forth and so on. So I think what we have is an inflammatory storm that's relentless. And it breaks the person down, and it affects our fuse box. It affects our electrical center.
Yeah.
And it just takes the person's sense of self away from them in the extreme, and the will to live away from them. Just can't communicate.
Yeah.
They depend on other people for just about everything. The self-esteem is gone, and it's a devastating disease.
Yeah. So in 2017, you organized a Lyme Pack here in Washington, D.C. With the intention of raising awareness about Lyme and inviting more people to learn about it. So there you listed your short, medium, and long-term goals for the advancement of Lyme disease. Can you tell us about these goals and about the event?
Well, it was a think tank, and I had good fortune to have people from all walks of life come in and contribute from all around the country, including doctors, businessmen, politicians, professors, educators, other physicians, and and lay people who were very supportive of the whole effort. So it was a think tank, and I think we came out with some pretty good ideas, and that led to GLA eventually, as I'll explain. So in the short-term goals, we talked about we need a mantra, and we need something people can hang on to. And I wasn't happy with what we had out there. So I had a shower thought, and Choose Life Over Lyme was born. We need a definition for this illness.
Yeah.
We need a definition. And we need a name.
Yeah.
We don't have a name or definition. Those were short-term goals. Intermediate goals were to satellite with others, perhaps set up a European clinic. Long-term goal, though, is a big one, and that's several years down the road, but I think it absolutely has to happen. That's create a college, a center of excellence, training, accreditation, multiple disciplines, teaching, find a way to fund it. I don't think that's a challenge that can't be met.
Right.
We have to train hundreds of doctors in what should be a new discipline. And so I had that concept in 2017, and I still have that concept, and I feel it's absolutely essential. Because none of the well-known universities in our country, whether they're in Ohio, Minnesota, or North Carolina, are going to do this.
Right. So it's up to us.
It's up to private folks, yes. And I know it can be done, because if people get behind a good idea, the money won't be a problem.
Right.
And when people get behind a good idea, money won't be a problem.
Yeah.
It needs to be its own discipline, just like HIV is under IDSA in a similar way.
Yeah. So can you tell us a bit about your networking at that event and how it's sort of influenced your career and your research?
So what happened after that is that we did a follow-up to the participants, to the attendees, and we had a couple of initiatives. We had a review done, and then things kind of went flat until I, working with a GLA board of director member, was put in contact with Scott Santarella, CEO of GLA. And she said, well, you should talk to Scott. And I didn't know GLA very well. I knew it had fused from a number of earlier organizations, and I knew some of the principals. And I had a wonderful conversation with Mr. Santarella. I think it was late 17, very early 18. And that led to a trip to Stanford, where I presented what I'd done at the, what we attempted to do at the summit. I presented some of the economic data that we were gathering, and I gave him some other ideas, and he was very enthusiastic, very enthusiastic. So it was really a warm welcome and not entirely anticipated. One thing led to another, and they established that they wanted to work with the Jemsek clinic. They came down here one at a time. Tim Saletti is the chief medical officer, well published, good scientific mind. So along with Scott, it's Tim, and they have one other associate's PhD. But what they have is a scientific board, which is impressive. So a number of PhDs and physicians who represent several academic centers.
Yeah.
And that really sets them apart. Now this organization has funded over $10 million over the years in their fairly brief history. But they said, we've never done anything with humans, we're tired of working with mice.
Yeah.
And so, so they were able with the, through their efforts and their contacts to create a coalition with a number of universities, including Stanford and Georgetown, to use my protocol, my new patients, and just process them the way we ordinarily would. They all came down and watched what we did, and they were blown away because of the detail. The detail is necessary. You can't shortcut this illness. And they liked that very, very much and said, why don't we get some biologics and get the people that know how to do these tests, that have never been done in a systematic way before. Get a control group and do the surveys, quality of life, and follow your patients and see what we can learn.
Yeah.
Sort of reverse engineer it. And I thought, this is what I want to do, because actually at the summit, one of the things I said more than once, which I just now remembered, is we have to marry the clinician with the laboratory doctor.
Yeah.
I call him the test tube doctor, but laboratory doctor.
Yeah.
You have to marry him.
Yeah.
Because I don't care how smart you are out in Stanford, you're not figuring this disease out.
Yeah.
You don't know how it works. And I don't care how good I am clinically, I don't have the data and the resources to do all this data. So we eventually need to get into the mainstream somehow. And I really believe that this door is going to open, and once it opens, it won't shut again.
That's amazing. It really is a big deal. So can you tell us just really quickly what you're hoping the study will achieve? I know you sort of mentioned that, but...
Well, all the results will be hidden from me. I won't have
Okay.
a clue. We'll just do our usual
Yeah.
markers. And meanwhile, there are going to be clinical case reports, charts offsite. The company running this is an amazing company. So first-class company, very, very confident, very enthusiastic about the study. So what we hope to accomplish is put it to the minds that the scientific community and say, okay, here's what Jemsek did here, and I'm sure we'll have numerous meetings. Okay, here's what we expect here. Here's when people start to get better. We start to see some clearing. We start to see some immunologic confidence coming in for a period of a day, 2 days, period of days. And this is typically when we see it. And what markers along the way that we don't ordinarily test can be useful to tell us that the patient's going in the right direction or the wrong direction, or indirectly allow us to do a better job.
Yeah.
So when we treat this disease, we're treating a number of pathogens, and we prioritize our treatment. We're always treating the spirochete and all its life forms, and everybody knows how many multiple life forms it has. There's a tremendous amount of damage going on. Every infected cell, whether it's Bartonella, Ehrlichia, the various spirochetes, mycoplasma, every infected cell is a dead cell. It has to be replaced. It takes a lot of energy, a lot of rewiring. There are areas of the brain that don't rewire as well as others. So, yet we see some tremendous healing. And so we'd like to correlate that with useful markers and also immunologic recovery. We know our patients get better. We know that the better they do, the less we do over time, but we don't have a lot of immunologic markers, which we need to, or else, in the few occasions I've measured them, I've measured the wrong ones perhaps, because I'm an HIV guy, CD3, CD8, CD4. Am I missing something? Does it take longer to recover immunologically on the T cell side, on the cell-mediated side? And also there's a ton of hypogammaglobulinemia. So T cells don't talk to B cells, don't talk to plasma cells. And we see people left and right with low IgG, low IgM, low IgA. So what happens to those people? Functionally, they don't act like acquired immunoglobulin or inherited immunoglobulin deficiency. They don't act that way. So I've treated those people. But there's something profoundly wrong with the immune system. There's no question this is an immunosuppressive disease. So we have an immunosuppressive disease which drains the battery, has constitutional symptoms, which is multi-compartmental neurologically. Every single part of the brain, peripheral nervous system is in play, potentially, which is multisystemic, and as I said before, it's polymicrobial. And I firmly believe you have to have a set of organisms, with the exception of a couple of subsets of disease, motor neuron specific predominantly. And I think there's more to learn and follow, because I would be naive if I said, oh, it's just a half dozen or 6 or 8 organisms that we have to follow. But when we do follow and we do it successfully, our patients get better. But I know that there are secondary and tertiary pathogens that are becoming opportunistic. That just stands to reason.
So why do you think it's taken so long to get to this point? Can you tell us a bit about the controversy?
I wish I knew. That's a wonderful question. I think it's, not to overuse and trivialize the term, but the perfect storm. This disease syndrome was recognized many years ago, 2, 3, 4 decades ago. And about the same time that corporate America took over medicine, and then medicine became more and more nationalized, both here and abroad. The effect of that was the dissolution of the physician-patient relationship. It all became about timing and getting 4 patients in an hour. There's no way you can do a detailed review and exam on a complex patient. When you break down that all-important fundamental principle between doctor and patient, you really destroyed medicine. Because what is medicine without a patient? I mean, what is it? So, that's all broken. And I think in today's era where there's so many demands on the physicians, well, first of all, some physicians should be in medicine, period. They don't belong there, they should do plumbing or something. But the ones that are compassionate and want to try, many of them are overwhelmed. They have their own schedules. There's a lot of red tape because the bureaucracy from the government, from the private insurers, who are wealthy, by the way, hideously wealthy, obscenely wealthy. So that destroys, so now you've got an overburdened physician who cares, but just doesn't have the energy to take the next step. And when they do, they don't have a guide path. They don't have a way to get there. They do twice as much as they thought they were supposed to do, and they still don't get the patient better. They get frustrated. And they say, I can't help. And then they, so they give up and they get frustrated. One of the things about GLA in the study is that, I don't know if I came up with this or where it came from, but if you have 100 different practitioners treating patients, they're going to do it in 100 different ways. And the GLA study was going to open the door is not about me, or everybody being like me, or the college even. It's not like mini-me Jemsek. No, it's about learning and making a science out of it, and applying that and doing it better. But we have total entropy right now. People doing it all different ways. It's crazy. And the internet's a buzz, but try this, try that, this one's good, this one's bad, et cetera, et cetera. So I think to get some sort of framework around a study like this gives us a great start, because I know GLA wants to do, once this is successful, they want to do more studies. And this, by the way, is a pilot study, but it does have control group. And to follow, I would suspect, would be some small multi-site studies. Just to gather more data, and then build on what we've learned and present. It's going to be highly criticized because there's no textbook or even publishing on, what I do. A lot of people know what I do. I mean, it's all over the internet, I suppose. But not many people know the concepts behind it, and the where and the why. But we do get people better. And the other thing that's very important, Catherine, is that when we approach the patient, we're pretty good now, after a number of years, at identifying this patient's a no-go, either before they start or during, because they have one of 2 dozen conditions that popped up, or was pre-existing. So we're pretty good at identifying that and then trying to fix that and go on.
So considering how far you've come with Lyme disease and all the obstacles you've had to overcome, would you say you've ever expected this day to come, this collaboration with GLA and this study?
No. A few years ago, I took it on myself to meet with a minister in Charlotte who was a very kind man, and we talked, and just a very kind, understanding, intuitive guy, and I didn't go to his church. And he said, Joe, you're going to be vindicated in your lifetime. I said, no, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't even care if I am. That's not what's important. He says, but you will. So this is special opportunity.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time, Dr. Jemsek. It was really a pleasure speaking with
You
you.
did a wonderful job and coached me just fine. And to you watching at AONM and Claire and your wonderful group, I'm so impressed at your gathering. 280 people, I understand. It just keeps getting bigger and better each year, and you're to be congratulated. And it's an honor for me to share these brief few moments with you. Thank you very much. We will be doing more on social media. Finally have some help in that regard. I'm being drugged into the 21st century, kicking and screaming, and so we actually have Instagram now. And what the other things that we're supposed to have, whatever they are. And so we are going to try to put more out there, because we do think we have a lot to say, and we love our patients and we want to share. Thank you very much.